The MagAssemble technology was in fact a platform for patterning. You could make anything with it in principle. Things that we've looked at making range from things called MRI contrast agents, which are used for enhancing the image contrast in medical resonance imaging or magnetic resonance imaging for medical applications. And you can pattern quantum materials, anything that you can pattern. If you have a raw material that can be assembled into a structure hierarchically, we can make that with this technology. So it's not limited to optics. Optics was just, it seemed, the best value proposition to get started. And of course, to start a company, it's not just about the technology, it's about having a customer and a market. In 2012, we incorporated. In 2014, we actually successfully landed this first SBIR grant. We had a couple of employees. One was my former PhD student who got his PhD working on the technology. He became MagAssemble's primary scientist, and his job was to develop a diffractive optic that ideally could be mounted onto an optical fiber using this technology. And he in fact delivered that. And by the end of the first grant period, we'd been able to build a diffraction grating using this technology that had some real promise for being able to hook onto the end of an optical fiber and steer light into different directions. At that point, we got the follow-on award to do what's called a Phase 2 SBIR, and we recruited some additional personnel, recruited a full-time CEO, and tried to actually expand the interest from various customers in this optical element that went onto the fiber optic. And I think that's where it got to be really difficult, because it's really hard to bring a new technology to bear when people already have a technology to make something. Just making something cheaper is not enough. You need to make something new that a customer will want. That's where we started to run into trouble. We were trying to make prototypes to serve this market, and we made in the end a variety of prototypes, but it turned out to be much harder to scale the technology itself. The customers weren't necessarily demanding exactly what we could provide over what they were getting with other products. And so we started to run into this problem of we didn't have that killer market or killer app for our technology. So what happened is, we got near the end of the second grant and we didn't have that killer product to sell. And we had gone to a number of competitions where we had presented our work. It was one of these problems where one of the different things we were aiming at had worked. We would have had to scale very rapidly. But you need this combination of the right product, but also you need to have something that has value without needing to deliver 1 million in the first month. And so we were kind of stuck in between these two extremes. We started partnering with another South Carolina startup called Certimo. We got involved with them and they introduced us to a bunch of their customers, and we were working specifically on this idea of making better diffraction gratings that could be replicated and hitting size targets and things like that. And we found one company actually out in the west somewhere, out in Idaho. They had a particular need to put a pattern on an optical fiber, which was back to sort of that original idea that MagAssemble had. We actually executed, we were able to build that pattern. At that point, Certimo had decided to acquire MagAssemble, and the CEO of Certimo was able to get the CEO of Thor Labs interested in talking with us, and they saw how quickly we'd executed on that opportunity from that company. We made a prototype and it had worked and so forth, and I think that's when they decided to acquire the combined Certimo MagAssemble team.